All right, so welcome, ladies, once again to day four. Yeah, day four of our Money Revamp Bootcamp. When it seemed like at the beginning, at 7 days, it was going to be the whole week. Now we're already more than halfway through. And so once again, well done for showing up. Today is just even going to solidify all the hard work that you've put into getting your finances in order, getting your goals set, and getting to the point where you're feeling more confident about your finances. Today is going to make all your hard work even more solid. So I'm really looking forward to guiding you through the sessions today. Once again, I want to celebrate you for showing up. I know that it's not easy to stay consistent with things like this, but once again, good job for showing up. Honestly, you're showing up for yourselves, you're showing up for your loved ones, you're showing up for generations to come, actually, because what you're doing is you are building on maybe knowledge that you had before. We were having conversations earlier, and one of the participants was saying that this is the first time that she's actually taking her finances seriously. And so I can only just imagine the ripple effect that would have. So honestly, even though, yes, we meet every evening and it's sort of casual and informal, at the same time, realize that what you're doing is really powerful and will have an impact for generations to come. So as usual, I'm going to review the promise of this bootcamp. So far, we're over halfway there, and we have covered the one thing that's keeping you from feeling at peace with your finances, and that's just basically staying in the dark and not paying attention, not taking the time to actually be honest with yourself, as we were talking about in our previous discussion, taking the time to actually face your finances. That's the one thing that's keeping you from feeling at peace, because once you make the decision to actually face your finances, shining the light on things that you've been ignoring will really cause you to feel at peace. What most women ignore, which is taking charge and coming up with a plan. Today, we're actually going to dig into that a little bit more to solidify some of the plans that you have already come up with. To reintroduce myself, my name is Yewande. I am the founder and CEO of For Wealth Grows, a medical doctor, a psychotherapist, a financial literacy educator. I simplify the language of money so that women just like you can have access to the knowledge, the information, the education that you need to make solid financial decisions. And so to basically recap what we've done so far and to show you where we are on our journey and where we're going. Day one, I guided you through designing your destination. So dreaming about what you want your finances to look like at the end of the day, 50, 60, 70 years down the line. We did the work of actually pinpointing your present position, which is when we assessed where you are when it comes to your savings, your investing, your earning, your protecting, your communicating, whether it's with yourself or a significant other. You gave yourself scores in those different categories. And then yesterday, you came up with a plan of what you wanted to do in order to increase your score in those categories by 1 or 2 points. Today, on day 4, we're going to be smartening those goals. We're going to make them even more solid and even more actionable. And based on conversations, I know that this is going to be a particularly useful session, building on what we've already learned so far. So I took this picture probably about 2 or 3 years ago when I first started blogging. I think I was writing about reading, yes, about books that I loved to read and books that had had an impact on me. So before I formally started my business, I loved to read mostly fictional books, but particularly fictional books that were based in a particular point in time in history. So I would enjoy the story, but I would learn a little bit of history as well. These are just some of the books that I've read over the years. Some of them I've read more than once, and I will probably read again because I really enjoyed them. But the reason I'm showing you this picture is that in a couple of months from now, it's going to be January 1st, 2022. And by the grace of God, we're all going to live to see then and beyond. But many people are going to come up with New Year's resolutions. And I know for a fact that reading, in addition to losing weight and making more money and all of those things, usually is one of the things that people would want to do more of. And you usually hear goals like, oh, I'm going to read a book a month, or I'm going to read 12, not even a book a month, I'm going to read 24 books in 2022, or maybe to make it even sound more catchy, 22 books in 2022, right? I will guarantee you that someone is going to come up with a goal like that. But the thing is that it's awesome to read and it's awesome to have goals like that. But as we mentioned yesterday, I had shared a quote that said that a goal without a plan is just a wish. And so you've taken the first step into solidifying your goals, whether it's to curb your spending, whether it's to get your will and your insurance in order, whether it's to increase your income. You've come up with a general idea of what it is that you need to do. But much like saying, I want to read 22 books in 2022, that's still not quite good enough for it to actually come to pass. We need to take things up a notch. We need to take things a step further. And how do we do that? We do that by setting SMART goals. SMART goals is something that you probably have heard. Maybe you've heard them before, maybe you haven't, but it's a very effective, systematic way of taking the plans that you laid out yesterday and actually making them more tangible, more realistic, more doable, such that you highly increase your success, your rate of success, as opposed to just saying, these are the things that I want to do. I want to set up a savings account, or I want to invest in dividends. Taking it a step further is going to really help you get to the point where you're actually accomplishing these goals. And SMART is an acronym. There are different variations, but this is the one that I love to use the most. S standing for specific, M standing for measurable, A standing for achievable, R standing for relevant, and T standing for time-bound or timely. This quote by Tony Robbins says, setting goals is the first step in turning the invisible to the visible. So like you say, you're taking it from just a dream, an idea, or a statement to actually having a result at the end of the day. And setting goals, and not just any kind of goals, but SMART goals is really the key to getting you from the invisible, a wish, a desire, to the visible. Now, I'm going to break down the acronym, the SMART acronym, and then I'm also going to give a personal example at the end of giving examples, explaining the acronym. And so I'm really hoping that as we go through this today, it will help you start thinking about how you can start setting SMART goals for the plan that you laid out yesterday. So specific S, the S in SMART is specific. And this basically means that you give details on what it is that you're actually going to do. You make your goal more specific. So instead of just saying, I want to read 22 books in 2022, you actually have to break it down into a more specific goal. And like I said, I will give you some examples. I'll give you an example later. How do you make it more specific? Think about the how of the goal. Think about where the goal is going to take place. Think about why you're doing the goal, why you set the goal. Think about who is involved, and think about what it is that you're going to do. When is also important, but when also comes at the end of the SMART acronym, which is time-bound. So we don't need to worry about when too much when we're on the S part. We're going to come to that later. But for now, I really want you to start thinking about the how, the where, the why, the who, and the what of your goal. M stands for measurable. Measurable basically says, okay, you're saying that you want to set this goal, But how are you going to know when you've actually accomplished the goal? Is there evidence? Is there proof? Is there a way to actually track your goal, to see that either you're on track or to see that you have actually accomplished what you said that you're going to accomplish? The reason why measurability is important is, one, as I said, you need to know when you've actually accomplished the goal. And the only way to do that is to measure it. And then two, measurability is also important because if you are working on a goal and you're doing various things, say, for example, you're trying to lose weight, as an example, or keeping it relevant to money, say that you have a goal to save $1,000, for example, and you have said that this is a goal that you want to set, and maybe you have a tracker that looks something similar to what you have here, where every $100 you're checking things off, or every $50 you're checking something off, and you can visually see that the money is growing. If you're getting close to your deadline and you're measuring and you're like, okay, you know what, I'm falling behind, then you can start to strategize on how you can pick things up in order to make your deadline, right? But if you're not measuring, there's no real way to know whether you're on track or whether you're falling behind. So the two reasons why having a goal that's measurable or making your goal measurable is so that you'll know once you've actually achieved the goal. And even more importantly, you'll know when you're falling behind and where you need to pick up the pace in order to meet up with the deadline, which we're going to talk about very soon. So that's measurable. A is achievable, and that's basically asking, is it doable? This is when, again, that dose of honesty is going to be important, when you really think about being realistic. Where I'm not saying that you should set goals that you know for sure you can do in your sleep. Obviously, there needs to be a little bit of a stretch, but at the same time, it shouldn't be like trying to fit a camel through the eye of a needle. There's a parable in the scripture that talks about that. But if you are trying to fit a camel through the eye of a needle, you're setting yourself up for failure, right? And so this is when really being honest with yourself and really being truthful and realistic is going to be important. When you set your goals, make sure that it's doable, but also make sure that it's a balance between not impossible and also not too easy. And this is where really being honest with yourself, whether it's based on previous experiences, you can even talk to an accountability partner, someone who you know will be honest with you and say, I think you can do a little bit better than that. And someone who can challenge you, or someone who will also be honest and say, you know what, given this situation and that situation, it might be that you're doing too much or you're expecting too much. Maybe we need to shrink the goal a little bit. So achievable, is it doable? So R is relevant. Relevant is basically asking, does it fit? Does it fit into your overall life goals? I love to talk to people about their values because it's so amazing that when you know your values, making decisions becomes so much easier. So I'll give you a simple example. So imagine someone comes to me and she wants to work through her finances, get things organized, get things set up in such a way that she wants to be able to leave. It gets really, most all of us on this call actually right now live in Canada, and it gets really cold here, right? But this particular woman wants to be able to leave for 6 months in a year, or maybe even she decides, you know what, I want to travel the world for the next 5 years, right? I want to go to Asia, I want to go to Australia, I want to go to all these beautiful places and see the world. Of course, COVID will get in the way of that, but let's say that this is outside COVID and this is a real desire of hers. But at the same time, she's telling me that, okay, I really want to set this goal because I want to build a brand new home in Toronto, right? So we've done her values and we've established that traveling the world is something that's really, really important to her. But then she's telling me that when she set her goals, she wants to build a brand new home in Toronto. I'll really have to question whether that building a home is relevant, because when we did that deep work and that deep exercise of getting to the core of what will make you happy, buying a home that first of all will require so much capital for a down payment for the first part, and second of all will actually tie you down. Is that really relevant? Does that really fit into the grand scheme of what you want for your life? And this is when those kinds of conversations start to come up. Or say, for example, someone wants to buy a brand new car, but then at the same time, they're saying that they really want to start up a foundation, whether it's a nonprofit foundation. I'll have to ask, okay, so which one is relevant for this particular period in life? If this person is saying, well, you know what, I really need a car because I need to get around, and I'm really, the more I get around, the more that I can raise capital for my foundation, then yes, that is a relevant goal. But if they're saying that, you know what, everyone else around me is changing their cars and I really want a brand new car and my neighbor just got this and my friend just got that, then I would really have to question whether that decision to purchase a car, that goal, is relevant. Does it really fit into the big picture of the direction that you want to take your finances? And then finally, time bound. So we spoke about specific, we spoke about measurable, we spoke about achievable, we spoke about relevant, and now time bound or timely. This is when we put a deadline to the goal. This is when we put a deadline to the goal. And I want to encourage you that when you're setting goals, try not to set deadlines that are beyond 3 months out. And the reason I say that is because every 3 months you can evaluate and reevaluate and then reevaluate. If you give yourself too much time, there's a principle called Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law. And what Parkinson's law says is that work will expand to fill the time that it's given. Work will expand to fill the time that it's given. So if you give 2 people the same assignment and you give one person 1 month to complete the assignment and the other person 2 weeks to complete the assignment, right? They'll both get it done. For one person, it'll take 2 weeks. The other person will definitely take a month for the most part. They're definitely not going to submit the assignment 2 weeks in advance. They're probably going to take the whole month to complete the assignment. So work expands to fill the time that it's given. And so if you give yourself a year to complete a goal, it is going to take you a year to complete that goal. But if you shrink it down to 3 months, then that gives you time to reevaluate and redirect. We talk about measurability as being an important tool to be able to refocus your goals. But I can already hear you asking that, okay, Ade, there's some goals that I have that will definitely not take 3 months. And that's completely fine. So if your goal is going to take shorter, then for sure, give it a shorter time span. And in fact, the example that I'm going to give you has a much shorter time span. And then you're saying, well, Ade, there's some goals that I have that are like three years out, 5 years out. Again, that's completely fine. But what you still need to do is then break them down even further. Because if you don't do that, 3 years is going to come and go, and you're still going to be saying the same thing. 5 years is going to come and go, and you're still going to be saying the same thing. So ultimately, just as we spoke about yesterday, when you have a big goal that is 3 years out, 5 years out, I still want you to see about bringing it down to what can I do today? What can I do in the next 3 months? What can I do consistently to work up to that goal? So say, for example, in 3 years from now, you want to have quit your job, just as an example, you want to have quit your job and have your own business. Well, you're not going to wait until 3 years from now to do all of that. There are things that you can actually start doing today to build up to that. So you could say over the next 3 months, I want to figure out exactly what it is I want to start my business in. I'm just going to do some research. So you do that over the first 3 months. And then the next 3 months, okay, how much money am I going to need in order to quit my job? And then you do that research. And then the next 3 months, okay, how can I start saving that money in order to be ready 3 years from now to quit my job? And so even though the ultimate goal is 3 years from now, it's still important to still break it down. Don't wait for 3 years. Obviously, you're working on it consistently. But having that deadline, as I say, it's very important. And to the best of your ability, keep it within a maximum of 3 months. And every 3 months, you can evaluate what those goals are. And so now I'm going to go on an example. I'm going to build off of the example that we started with yesterday, which was my personal example. Yesterday, I had explained that when I did my assessment, my present position assessment, I had decided that, you know what, I really want to focus on my earning, because given that I've changed my careers, I just started my business a couple of years ago, I really want to start focusing on increasing my earnings. Inflation is a real thing, right? The government Statistics Canada put out a statistic that inflation is going to be about 4 to 5% by the end of this year. So that means our money isn't going to stretch as far. So if I can bring up my earning, that would definitely go a long way with that. So what I had written down a list of things, ideas that I'd come up with, but the one that I'm actually going to use to demonstrate the example today is the goal to buy more dividend shares, because I feel like that's really the quickest way, the easiest way to actually increase my income. Maybe not by a whole lot, but by enough to go a long way. At least it'll buy some groceries. And so, to be specific, I decided to give details. I blotted out the when, because as I mentioned, the when falls into the category of being time bound. So my vague, so the opposite of specific is vague. So the vague goal was to buy more dividend shares. So what you did yesterday was write down some vague goals. And now we're going to make them SMART, right? So in order to make this goal SMART, I said, I will increase my passive income by investing $1,000 worth of dividend earning stocks into my brokerage account. So you can see how that is more specific than buy more dividend shares, right? The who is I, increase my passive income is the why, investing is how, $1,000 of dividend earning stocks is what, and into my brokerage account is where. To your best of your ability, I do want you to come up with a who, why, how, what, and where for your SMART goals. Sometimes you might not be able to fill out all of these categories, but the more you really think about it, the more detail that you put down in these SMART goals, the easier it'll be to actually accomplish them. And so measurable, is this goal measurable? Yes, it is measurable. And so measurable is just basically asking, where is the proof, or is there proof? In this case, for me, yes, there is proof. And for me, I just decided to just share with you a screenshot of my dividend history of this year. So I took it just before. I thought, okay, it would be nice to actually show you visually how I would measure the growth of my dividends or the accumulation of my dividends. So how will I measure it? I would log into my brokerage account, and then I would check for my dividend. I would check my dividend growth tracker and see and make sure that, okay, on average, my dividends are going up. Yesterday I failed to explain what exactly a dividend earning stock is. So I think this is a good time to just quickly explain that, just in case there are people here who I don't want to take it for granted that this is something that everyone knows. So I believe that we're all familiar with the idea of investing in the stock market, which is when you buy a piece of a company and you are basically a part owner along with thousands and hundreds of thousands of other people. But when you buy a piece of a company, you own part of the company. Now, there's some companies that will actually pay dividends, which means that they will pay everyone who owns a piece of that company. They will pay them a certain amount every 2 to 3 months, okay? Or every quarter, or depending on their schedule, right? Usually it's every quarter. And so what they'll do is that everyone who owns a certain amount of stocks, they will pay them a certain amount of money per quarter. And so this is just, and usually they're here in Canada, they're the bank stocks. So Royal Bank of Canada. Again, I'm not giving investment advice. I'm just sort of telling you what there are many different kinds of dividend stocks, but the bank stocks, the energy stocks, a lot of different kinds of stocks, Royal Bank, CIBC, they tend to give dividends, right? I'm not saying that I invest in them. In fact, I don't think I invest in either of those banks, but they tend to give dividends. And so just to explain to you that this is a way that people can invest to actually earn a couple of hundreds of dollars per month, depending, of course, on how many dividend stocks you own. So yes, long answer to say that I have a way of actually measuring my goal. There is proof that I am working towards my goal. Now, is it achievable? So unlike trying to stick a camel through a needle, yes, this is achievable. For me, this is a goal that is achievable as long as I get all my ducks in a row and I'm able to channel some of my investment funds, as I mentioned the other day, that it's all automated anyways. And so I usually have available funds that I can channel towards increasing my portfolio. And so, yes, it is doable. It's not something that is impossible for me to do. And then finally, next, is it relevant? Does it fit? It does fit because, as I mentioned, my goal is to increase my income by 1 or 2 points. That's my goal because I wasn't quite satisfied with the 6 that I got in the earning category. So this is just one way that I'm planning on increasing my income. And yes, it does fit into the big picture of what I'm trying to do. And timely, I need to give myself a deadline. My deadline for getting this done is November 30th, 2021. By then, I would have received 2 more paychecks, hopefully, and I can also, so then I can then top up whatever it is that I'm funneling into the dividends. And so that's just sort of how things roll over, is that I channel things through and then I top up what has been taken out of what's sitting in my cash in the brokerage account. And so to summarize, setting SMART goals is one way that you can take your goals from being sort of this vague idea that, you know, one day I'll get it done, or next week sometime I'll get it done. Taking your goals from just this big idea to actually accomplishing them, making them specific, looking for proof so that you can keep yourself on track and keep yourself accountable, making sure that it's achievable, that it's not too easy, but also not too hard, making sure that it's relevant to your overall big picture and that it fits and it's not going to take you off track of what you're trying to accomplish, and then making sure it's timely, making sure that there's a deadline associated with it. So your homework, should you choose to accept it, is to set a SMART goal for 1 or maybe even 2 of the tasks that you wrote down yesterday for all the different pillars that we talked about. So say, for example, you decided that you wanted to organize your finances, and one of the tasks is to gather all the outstanding passwords for all the different accounts that you have in different places. You would set up a SMART goal for that particular task. Or say, for example, your overall goal is to stop impulsive spending, and one of the tasks is to open up a spending account. Then you would set a SMART goal for opening up a spending account. So now that you have your list of tasks, you would then set a SMART goal for each one. And you would get bonus points because ultimately, I firmly believe that, and this has been my experience, the experience of the women that I work with, is that if it's not written down, it's probably not going to happen. Chances are it's not going to happen. So as you do your homework tonight, I will also say that you can give yourself extra points if you actually schedule your deadline. So for me, it would be November 30th, 2021. I would put it in my calendar, complete dividend purchase or complete share purchase. I would put it in my calendar. And then anything that I need to do leading up to then will also be scheduled. So say, for example, make sure I have enough money in the brokerage account in order to make that happen. So that's one way of reverse engineering your goals, is to set the deadline and then think backwards of all the things that need to get done in order for that to happen. And then also schedule those tasks. So not just the deadline, but also schedule the tasks, whether it's in your paper planner or your agenda, your calendar, on your phone, whatever it might be, writing it down somewhere. I'm biased towards paper. I love to write my tasks down so I can see them and not get distracted by my phone. So that's my personal preference, but whatever works for you, just make sure you schedule your deadline and then all the other steps that are required to get up to that deadline. And we have come now to the end of day 4. We're quickly moving along. Tomorrow is also going to be a really good day because, as you can see, setting goals can be very challenging, maybe sometimes overwhelming, but I'm hoping that as we've gone through this step-by-step approach, you're starting to feel more, okay, this is doable. This step-by-step approach is doable. I don't have to tackle the whole thing at once. I can literally break it down into manageable bits. But having said that, though, there are things that can get in the way of us accomplishing our goals. And that's what we're going to be focusing on tomorrow, which is day 5. And I'm really looking forward to that as well. So we've come to the conclusion of day 4. And now I'm going to open up the floor to questions as usual. Any questions about anything that we discussed tonight? You can go ahead and unmute, and that way I can answer your questions. Or any comments?
I have a little comment. Like, you know how you were talking about like investing in like dividends and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know like you know how you set a goal and say, oh, I'm gonna invest in dividends, right? So how do you know that it's gonna be profitable? That it's a good, like, you know, I'm not sure. Just thank you.
Thank you, Fee. That's a good question. And so this is where we start talking about investing and doing research and having a good understanding of stocks, which I think is a bit beyond the scope of our discussion today. But suffice it to say that there are some certain kinds of stocks that have shown a history of over the past hundreds of years of always giving dividends. And like I mentioned, usually those are the bank stocks, sometimes energy stocks, insurance stocks. So what I have done is I have actually studied this, and I've decided on a handful of stocks that I have said, okay, these are nice stocks and they've shown a good consistency in paying out dividends. And so those are the ones that I will actually pick, right? I should mention, not to get too overwhelming, that dividend stocks do not form the majority of my investment. So dividend stocks do not form the majority of my investment. My investments are actually in what we call exchange traded funds, or ETFs. Again, I don't want to go into too much detail to be overwhelming, but suffice it to say that it would require just a little bit of research or education. Honestly, not as overwhelming as people might think it might be, but once you have the understanding of the basics that, okay, these companies are companies that have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they have a track record of paying out their dividends, whether there's a recession, whether there isn't a recession. They have a track record of paying out dividends to their members, to their owners. Then those are generally good stocks to invest in for the dividend side of things. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, ladies, thank you so much once again for showing up as usual. Tomorrow is day 5, and then we have a couple of days to go. Sunday's masterclass, I really, really hope that you'll be able to attend. It's actually going to be at, actually, ladies, let me know, do you want it to be at the same time? Because I was going to make it 3 p.m. Eastern, because it's Sunday night, people are getting ready for the day tomorrow. Getting ready for Monday. I was going to make it 3 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, I think I'm going to keep it at 3 p.m. Eastern, because I think later on it might be too long, the end of the weekend, etc. But there'll definitely be a recording. But I'm hoping you can make it live Sunday. Come with your questions, because I really want it to be as engaging, as interactive as possible. So any questions that you may have about finances, it doesn't have to be anything that we've covered during the boot camp. I will be teaching as usual, but I really want to open up the conversation for question and answer on Sunday. So 3 p.m. Eastern is 2 p.m. Central. 2 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Central. Okay, Eniala, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay. All right, ladies, so that's it for today. Okay, Atenika says you'll be in another meeting. There'll be a replay. So yeah, there'll be a replay. So I'll make the replay available. I'm just thinking that if we start at 9 p.m., okay, you know what, ladies, let's vote. Let's vote. Since you're all here today, you're my VIPs. I'd love to hear, would you prefer to meet at 9 p.m. on Sunday night? If you would prefer to meet at 9 p.m. on Sunday night, please put a 1 in the comments. 9 p.m. Sunday night will be 2 p.m. Central Time. And I'm not sure about Mountain Time. So it'll be 2 p.m. Central Time. If you prefer 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, please put a 1 in the comment. I think I've confused you. I think I've confused it. I can't remember what 1 is. Okay, please put afternoon or evening, because I don't even remember what 1 means. Afternoon or night. Afternoon or night. That will be easier. 3 p.m. Okay, you prefer 3 p.m. Afternoon, afternoon, afternoon. Okay, afternoon, afternoon. All right. 20 says night. Okay. I think the afternoons have won this one. 1, 2, 3, afternoon. Okay, perfect. So I'll see you all tomorrow. Tomorrow, and what's today? Today is Thursday. Tomorrow is going to be usual time, which is 9 p.m. Saturday will also be 3 p.m. Saturday will definitely be 3 p.m. and Sunday will be 3 p.m. All right, ladies. Thank you so much once again, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Good night.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you so much, sis.
You're welcome. Bye.